AITA for getting payback after my parents abandoned my daughter on Christmas Eve? I got home late on the night of December 24th, expecting to find the house empty because my daughter was supposed to be sleeping over at my parents' place. For days, she had been talking about the dinner, her cousins, the games, and the sleepover as if it were the most important event of the year. That is why the first thing I sensed when I opened the door threw me off. It was a burnt smell. Not like overdone toast. It was the smell of someone who had tried to make something special and failed. I walked into the kitchen and saw it immediately. There was a pan on the stove with something black stuck to the bottom. On the table was a plate with a few crumbs, as if someone had been trying to move in silence so as not to make any noise. And then I saw what made my stomach drop to the floor. Her shoes. Her jacket. My 11-year-old daughter was home. "Haley," I called out. "I'm here," she answered right away. She was sitting at the table in the same clothes I had left her an hours earlier at my parents' house. Her shoulders were hunched, as if she wanted to take up less space inside her own home. She was not crying. She was not making a scene. She just looked small. Nothing more, just small. I looked at her for a second, trying to make sense of what was in front of me. "You were supposed to be with your grandma and grandpa," I said. "I know." Her voice was too flat, as if she had rehearsed it. "So what are you doing here?" She blinked slowly. "They did not let me in." My mind took a moment to process the sentence. Really did. As if my brain refused to accept it. "They did not let you in?" I repeated. "At the door." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the plate. "They said there was no more room." I stared at her. "Room for what?" She looked at me with a strange expression, as if I had asked her why water is wet. "For me." That is when I saw the gifts. All of them. Arranged by the entrance, standing upright, their bags perfectly straight, the tags attached, the colorful paper intact, as if she could not bear the thought of them looking mistreated. Even after everything, the gifts she had prepared with so much excitement were still there. Perfect, rejected. I felt my throat tighten. "Why are the gifts here?" Haley swallowed. "They did not want them." A chill went through my chest. "They told you to take them back?" She nodded once. I looked at her face, trying to keep my own calm, and asked her the question that really mattered. "Why did not you call me?" She looked down. "My phone died," she said in a small voice. "I asked my grandma if I could borrow one to call you." I asked the next question, though I already knew the answer. "And what did she say?" No, her voice broke on that last word. "She said it would just make things worse. That you were busy. Busy. And then my grandpa said I should just walk home," she added, as if she were repeating the most normal thing in the world. "He said it was not far." I just stared at her. It is not far when you are an adult and you know the area well. It is not far when you are not carrying gift bags digging into your hands. It is not far when you are not 11 years old. It is Christmas Eve, and in every window you pass there are people inside having dinner. "How long did you walk?" "About 20 minutes, she answered quietly. At first, I did not even really know where I was going, because we always drive. Something under my ribs ached, and the feeling stayed there. I glanced at the pan and then at the plate. "And this?" I asked softly. "Did you try to cook?" Her cheeks turned red, as if I had caught her doing something wrong. "I was hungry," she whispered, "and I wanted I do not know for it to feel like Christmas." That hit me harder than anything else. "I watched a video," she added quickly. "I tried to make pancakes but they burned." She pointed to the pan. "It is okay," I told her. I opened the window. The fact that she was trying to calm me down, as if she were the problem, made my throat ache. I pulled out a chair and sat down next to her. "Tell me from the beginning," I said gently. She took a deep breath, but it trembled. "You dropped me off and I went up right away just like you told me to." I nodded. My grandma opened the door and just stared at me, like she was surprised, like she had forgotten I was coming. My jaw tightened. And then my Aunt Dana said, "Oh no," just like that. Her mouth twisted at the memory. And my grandma said the house was already full, that there were not even enough chairs. "And my nephews?" I asked, though I was already bracing for the answer. "They were inside," she said in a whisper. "They saw me." She swallowed, gathered her strength and continued. Connor laughed and said my dress looked like a curtain. The word curtain came out bitter. And nobody said anything to him? She shook her head. My grandpa said, let us not start any trouble right now. I let out a breath through my nose. Sometimes dry humor is all you have left when the anger is too big to carry all at once. Of course, I said. Because letting an 11-year-old girl in would have been a huge problem. Haley managed a sad little half-smile. It lasted less than a second. I tried to give my grandma her present, she whispered. The one I made for her. I turned sharply. The ornament? She nodded. The tears finally came, as if she was tired of pretending to be strong. I put her name on it, she said. And she did not even take it. She just said, not right now. The sobs came out like a hiccup. She turned her face away quickly, ashamed of her own feelings, as if she were the one being inappropriate. I put my arm around her shoulders and hugged her. She leaned into me instantly, as if she could no longer hold herself up on her own through sheer stubbornness. I am sorry, she whispered against my sweater. No, I said firmly. You do not apologize for this. She let out a broken sigh. I ruined Christmas. You did not ruin anything, I told her. They did. She wiped her face on her sleeve and stared at the plate. I did try, she said, almost voiceless. I really did try. And there it was, all the pain in one sentence. My daughter had tried to create her own Christmas in an empty house because the people who were supposed to love her had decided she did not even deserve a chair at their table. I did not yell. I did not call my mom to start a screaming match. Haley did not need to hear that. She did not need to feel like she had caused a battle. So I swallowed it all. Every sharp word. I hugged my daughter tighter and inside me something clicked. I was not going to make a scene. I was going to act. 5 hours later, my parents' lives began to fall apart. I wish I could say my parents became like this overnight. It would be convenient to think that, as if they had caught some rare disease and woken up one morning not recognizing their own granddaughter. But it was not new. This time, however, they had the nerve to show it in broad daylight. My sister Dana was always the favorite. And I do not mean that in the every child is loved differently sense. No. I mean it in the sense of a visible scoreboard, of blatant, shameless favoritism and unfairness. Dana was older, louder, easier for them. She was the daughter they wanted to show off. I was the one who came later like an unexpected bill. When I was a child, my mother would say things like, "You are a lot of work," with the same casualness someone might say, "This suitcase is heavy." She did not say it with open cruelty. It was worse. She said it as if it were a fact of nature. As if needing care were a character flaw. By the time I was old enough to understand her tone, I also understood my place. The burden. Then I got pregnant young, unplanned. Haley's father barely qualified as a human presence, just long enough to make promises and then disappear like smoke. He was around for a little while, just long enough to make promises and vanish. I never went to my parents' house to ask them to solve my life for me. I did not have the energy for that. The fear was enough to deal with. But they treated me as if I had already handed them an invoice. My dad's first reaction was, "Now what? Are we supposed to support that too?" My mom's was, "You are destroying this family." As if my pregnancy had arrived with gasoline to set their curtains on fire. They bought me one baby outfit. One. My mom held it up in front of some relatives as if she had sponsored a charity. "We do support her," she said. And then she went on with her life. Dana, of course, played the part of the concerned sister very well. She would show up to give advice and disappear as soon as something required real effort. She cried when it suited her. She talked about sacrifices she had never made. I got out of there. I raised Haley alone. I put my degree on hold. I took an office job because I needed fixed hours and a salary that would actually show up in my bank account. Later, when I could, I took night classes. The kind where you eat dinner out of a Tupperware container in your car, and pretend it is normal. It was not a pretty life to talk about. It was survival. And, if I am honest, I was always better at surviving than begging. The only person who never treated me like a mistake was my grandmother Vivian. To Haley, she was her great-grandmother Vivian. She never asked me why I was not more careful. She never made me apologize for needing help. She just showed up however she could. My grandmother was not perfect. She was direct. She was frugal to the point of being funny. She once told me, "If you buy something at full price, do not complain later." As if it were a moral principle. But it was love within a family that always treated love as if it were a scarce resource. Over the years, she started having problems with her legs. Pain, weakness, the kind of wear and tear that makes short distances feel like a mountain. Her mind was perfectly sharp. She still had that ability to put you in your place with a single sentence. But moving became increasingly difficult. And my parents treated her like they treated me. Like a burden. Like an obligation. Like something you put up with until you can get back to your real life. They would call her to see how she was doing and then brag that they had. They would visit once a month, take a picture, and post it with captions like, "Family first." Then they would leave and not come back. Dana was the same. If my grandmother was a person, she forgot. If she was a potential inheritance, then suddenly she cared a great deal. I was the one who took her to her appointments. I was the one who did her grocery shopping. I was the one who learned how to help her stand up without falling. I even took a short course on senior care because I was tired of feeling like I was just winging it with someone I loved. It helped me save her money, be useful, and prevent her from feeling so helpless, which was what mattered most. And the more time I spent with her, the more I saw an uncomfortable truth. My parents treated my grandmother the way they had treated me. Like an inconvenience. Like a chore. Like something to be endured until it was no longer in the way. The worst part is that my grandmother did help them. A lot. But she was never one to announce what she was doing. She helped in silence. Without showing off. Without calling in favors publicly. At some point, my parents moved into a house that the whole family called the house Grandma Vivian gave them. That phrase was repeated so often that it became the truth for everyone. The house she gave them. The house she left them. The house she wanted them to have to bring the family together. My parents began to talk about it as if it belonged to them by divine right. And after they had it, they visited my grandmother less. It was stunning how they turned generosity into a closed case. As if, once she had given them something, she no longer had any value. My grandmother, on the other hand, chose to live in a small apartment in a senior complex across town. She said she was more comfortable that way. Less to clean, less to worry about. She was never interested in keeping up appearances. She liked comfort, not attention. That is why that Christmas mattered so much. That year, my grandmother could not go to the big gathering. Her legs were worse. The idea of a full house, noise, stairs, children running around, and all the commotion of Christmas Eve was too much. My parents did not offer to go to her. They did not offer to bring her dinner. They did not even offer to video call until I suggested it. So I chose to spend some time with her. And I also chose to give Haley what she thought was going to be the big family Christmas. My parents' house was always immaculate, decorated, with the kind of order that seems magical to children. Cousins, games, cookies, the sleepover, all the things that, for an 11-year-old girl, feel like a rite of passage. Haley put her whole heart into those gifts. She saved up. She made things by hand. She thought about what each person would like. It made her proud. She did not care that I would not be there all night because to her it was still family. That is what made it so much crueler when they told her to go celebrate somewhere else. That there were no chairs. That there was no room. That there was no space for her. While they were sitting at the table, feeling satisfied with their perfect Christmas Eve, they had no idea that something was already shifting beneath them. That night I had two jobs. To bring my daughter back to herself and to stop my parents from doing any more damage while she was still hurting inside. Haley was not throwing a tantrum. That was the problem. She moved around the kitchen as if she were asking the air for permission. As if she did not deserve to take up space even in her own house. I did not lecture her about the stove. I did not point to the burnt pan as proof of why she should not cook alone. That could be discussed later. That night the priority was something else. The shame. So I did what many moms do when they do not have the right words. I made hot chocolate and pretended I was not furious enough to bite a wall. I added extra marshmallows because trauma is no time to practice moderation. Haley sat with the mug between her hands, as if it were the last warm thing left in the world. Every few minutes her gaze would drift to the gifts by the door. They still looked nice. They were still unwanted. I kept thinking I should go knock on their door. That I should make them say it to my face. And then I would see my daughter's shoulders, how tense they were, how small she had made herself, and I would swallow it, because I was not going to turn her night into the soundtrack of a fight. Then my cell phone rang. My grandma Vivian. It was not a long or affectionate call. My grandmother did not make long or affectionate calls, unless she was giving you advice you did not ask for. She made check-in calls. Practical. Direct. I answered and put it on speaker because I was busy and because Haley's face lit up as soon as she heard the ringtone. "Great-grandma," she said. "Put me where I can see you." Not even a hello. My grandmother did not waste time on greetings when she could be efficient with her love. I switched to a video call. My grandmother appeared on the screen with her glasses on, and that expression she got when she was about to correct something. Haley moved closer to the phone as if it were a window. "Merry Christmas, great-grandma," she said, trying so hard to sound normal that it made my throat ache. My grandmother's face softened. "Merry Christmas, my love." Haley smiled. It lasted half a second. Then her expression crumpled and the tears came anyway. Silent. Stubborn. Without a fuss. She did not want anyone to see her like that. My grandmother saw her. My grandmother always saw. "What happened?" she asked calmly but with an edge, as if her mind was already putting the pieces together. Haley looked at me with that good girl panic. "I do not want to get anyone in trouble." And then she broke anyway because the truth does not stay locked up forever. "They did not let me in," she whispered. My grandmother's expression froze. "Who?" "My grandma and grandpa," Haley said, her voice cracking. "They said there was no room. And they did not want the gifts." My grandmother blinked once slowly. The kind of blink that means, I am choosing my words very carefully so I do not start a fire. Haley wiped her face quickly. "I asked them for a phone too," she added, as if she needed to justify herself. "Mine had died. And they told me no." My grandmother's mouth tightened. "And you walked back?" Haley nodded. "My grandpa said it was not far." My grandmother did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She looked at my daughter through the screen and said, "Listen to me carefully, Haley. You did nothing wrong." "Nothing." Haley made a strange little noise, as if she wanted to live inside those words. My grandmother continued. "You were polite. You brought gifts. You arrived when they told you to. If anyone should feel ashamed, it is the people who left a little girl at their door." Haley's chin trembled. I held her closer to me and she leaned in as if she had been holding herself up with pride alone. My grandmother's gaze shifted to me. "Rachel." "Yes," I replied, already sensing something was coming. Her voice hardened. "I gave them that house so there would be room for family." Room for family. I did not interrupt her. I did not arrange her thoughts for her. I did not feed her lines. I just stood there with my daughter in my arms, letting her reach her own conclusions. And they used that space to leave my great-granddaughter out. The air left me for a second because when my grandmother got quiet, someone was about to lose. "I will not allow it," she said. "Grandma," I started almost out of habit, because I was not looking to add fuel to the fire. "No," she cut me off. "My legs hurt, not my head." "I know," I said softly. Her voice became even calmer. "I am going to undo this." I blinked. "Undo what?" "The house," she replied. I stared at her on the screen. "Grandma, you cannot just take a house away like that." A corner of her mouth twitched. "You would be surprised what can be done when people do not read what they sign." It sounded like a riddle. It sounded like a promise. Haley wiped her face again, trying to straighten up after being told she did not even deserve a chair. My grandmother's expression softened when she saw her. "Finish your chocolate," she ordered affectionately. "And next Christmas, you will be where you belong." Haley nodded, small, careful. We ended the call a minute later. My grandmother told Haley she loved her. She told me to lock the door properly. She never missed an opportunity to assume the world was full of criminals, my parents included. After that, I focused on the only thing that mattered. Getting through the rest of the night without letting that shame harden inside my daughter like cement. We watched a movie. We got under a blanket. Haley fell asleep in that exhausted way children do after holding on for too long. And before midnight, before I had even fully understood the comment about the papers, the phone rang again. It was my mother. I answered, and she did not even take a breath before starting. What did you do? No hello. No, is Haley okay? Nothing. Just panic mixed with rage. I pulled the phone away from my ear. What are you talking about? Do not play dumb, she snapped. My mother called us in the middle of Christmas to say the house is not ours and that she is going to kick us out. I felt a punch in my gut. What? Do you think this is funny? She yelled. While we were celebrating, you went and turned her against us. I did not. You are a snake, she spat. You have always been jealous of us. You have always wanted what we have. I looked at the dark kitchen, the burnt pan, the gifts arranged like silent witnesses. I do not know what my grandmother told you, I answered carefully. But I did not plan anything. I did not even know. Sure you did not, my mom said. You have been hovering around her for months. Something inside me went cold clean. My daughter came home alone tonight, I said in a low voice. You left her outside. She walked back with the gifts you did not want. There was a short silence. Half a second where I could almost hear her brain searching for a way to make that not matter. Then she hissed, Do not change the subject. Of course. You left a child out in the cold, I said. On Christmas Eve. There were not enough chairs, she replied curtly. And besides, she is fine. You are raising her to be overly dramatic, just like you. She was left standing outside your door, I said, controlling every word. And you did not even lend her a phone. My mother's voice rose. Then you should have taken her with you. You were the one who left her alone. The audacity was almost admirable. And then she said something that, from her tone, I understood she had been holding back for years. We should have left you out a long time ago. As if Haley's broken Christmas had just been collateral damage from an older punishment. One that had always been meant for me. You are not going to be able to rewrite what you did, I told her. My mother let out an ugly, sharp laugh. You think you have one? You think my mother is in her right mind? And then in a voice that chilled my blood she added, We will take care of her. She hung up on me. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the phone as if it had turned into an animal. My grandmother had said she was going to undo something. My mother was terrified. My daughter was sleeping in her room, with tear tracks still visible on her face. I still did not quite understand how any of it was possible. I just knew that something was already in motion and my parents were trying to grab the steering wheel. The next morning I called my grandma Vivian. She did not answer. I called again. Nothing. On any other day, that alone would not have sent me into a panic. My grandmother was many things. Tech-savvy was not one of them. Sometimes she would leave her phone in a drawer and then forget which one. But I did not like the feeling that settled in my stomach. I tried again. Nothing. Haley walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, her hair sticking up as if she had fought her pillow and lost. Did great-grandma call yet? She asked quietly. No, I replied, trying to sound calm. Not yet. Her mouth tightened. Is she mad at me? I felt my chest constrict. No, sweetie. No. None of this is your fault. She nodded, as if wanting to believe me, but shame does not just disappear because you tell it to. We are going to go see her, I said. We will bring her the chocolate she likes. Her face softened a little. Okay. We went to her apartment mid-morning. The street felt strange, as if the city were also still waking up from Christmas Eve. I knocked. I waited. I knocked again. Nothing. I called her from outside. Nothing. Maybe she is asleep, Haley said. Maybe, I replied, but my hand was already searching for my keys. My grandmother had given me a copy for emergencies, and her definition of an emergency included, if I do not answer and you get worked up. I unlocked the door and went inside. The apartment was too quiet. Not the silence of an elderly person sleeping. The silence of emptiness. I walked through the living room calling her name. No response. And then I noticed what was missing. Her wheelchair was not in its usual spot. The blanket she used every night was gone too. The little bag she left by the door, where she kept papers and medicine, was not there. I could not breathe. Haley's small voice came from behind me. Where is she? I do not know, I said, and my voice sounded like someone else's. I went out into the hallway with trembling hands and went straight to the next-door neighbor. She opened the door in a robe, her hair tied up, with the look of someone who knows something you are not going to like. Oh, honey, she said before I could speak. Your mother was here. My stomach dropped. When? Early. Very early. I was taking out the trash. They had a car downstairs. Did my grandmother leave with them? I asked, hating how calm my voice sounded. Too proper. As if I were asking about a package. The neighbor hesitated. They had the chair. Your mother was talking fast. Your grandmother did not look happy. Did you hear where they were taking her? She shook her head. No. I am sorry. Of course not. People like my mother do not announce where they are taking you when they are not giving you a choice. I thanked her because apparently I am the kind of person who says thank you while her life is falling apart. I went back into my grandmother's apartment and stood still for half a second, trying to figure out how one is supposed to breathe in a situation like this. Haley was at the door with the box of chocolates in her hands, holding it as if it could protect her. Did they take her? I do not know, I replied. And then, because she is 11 and a child's imagination goes to horrible places, I immediately added, she is alive. She is okay. We are going to find her. I did not believe my own calm. I just needed her to borrow it. I called my mom. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I stood in the hallway staring at the phone as if, with enough hatred, it would start behaving. Haley tugged on my sleeve. Maybe they took her to their house. It was the first sensible idea all morning. We drove straight there. The whole way I kept checking my mirrors, as if the world had suddenly become unsafe in a new way. Haley was quiet, her hands in her lap, and I could feel her trying to be perfect so I would not break. When we got to my parents' house, I did not even turn off the car calmly. I just stopped it and got out. I knocked hard. My mother opened the door as if she had been expecting me. Her face was already set for a fight. Where is my grandmother? I demanded. She narrowed her eyes. Lower your tone. I stared at her. Where is my grandmother? She is fine. I did not come here to argue, I said, and my voice took on that icy tone it gets when I am trying not to explode in front of my daughter. I came to see my grandmother. My mother positioned herself in the doorway like a security guard. After what you did. I did not do anything, I told her. Except come home and find my daughter alone with burnt food, because you would not let her in. Do not start. I am not starting, I replied. I am finishing. Haley was behind me, very still. My mother glanced at her for a second and then looked away, as if holding her gaze would force her to feel something. Your grandmother is resting. She does not need your drama. Then let her tell me that herself. My mother's lips tightened. No, that word was the exact moment everything changed. Not because I expected reasonableness from my mother. I knew her better than that. But because she was blocking me from even seeing my grandmother. This was no longer a family squabble. This was control. I took out my cell phone and called 911. My mother's face contorted. Are you serious? Yes. She made a gesture of second-hand embarrassment, which was ironic for a woman who had made a lifelong sport of embarrassing me. When they answered, I stated exactly what I knew. My grandmother was not in her home. Her mobility aids were gone. My mother had taken her early that morning. My family was refusing to let me confirm she was okay or even speak with her. I did not give speeches. I did not spin theories. I just gave facts. While we waited, Haley's hand slipped into mine. Small, cold, trusting. When the police officers arrived, my mother's tone changed immediately. Her polite, proper lady voice switched on. Oh, thank goodness you are here. There has been a misunderstanding. The officer did not smile. We need to see Mrs. Vivian. My mother's face tensed. She is resting. We need to see her anyway. The same tone. Neither rude nor negotiable. My mother took just long enough for my heart to pound against my ribs. Then she stepped aside, as if she were being personally oppressed. My grandmother was in the back room, sitting in her wheelchair, a blanket over her legs, her eyes wide open. The moment I saw her, something inside my chest loosened so hard it almost hurt. Relief came first. The rage right behind it. Haley made a little noise and stepped forward before I could stop her. My grandmother reached out and took her hand, as if she had been waiting for exactly that proof of life. "There you are," my grandmother said, her voice hoarse. Haley nodded. Tears were already welling up. "I thought you were mad at me." My grandmother's eyes flashed with real anger. "I am mad at the right people." One of the officers crouched down slightly to be at her level. "Ma'am, are you all right? Are you here because you want to be here?" My grandmother did not hesitate. "No," my mother immediately interjected. "She is confused." My grandmother turned slowly toward her. "If you interrupt me again, I am adding it to the list." The officer looked back at my grandmother. "Do you want to leave?" "Yes," she replied. "Right now." My mother's mouth opened, closed, and opened again. It was like watching someone realize their favorite puppet had learned to cut its own strings. The police did not give a lecture. They did not sermonize. They just made space. In every sense of the word. They made it clear that my grandmother could leave. And as she passed in front of my mother, she did not even look at her. That silence said more than any shout ever could. I carefully helped her into the car. Haley sat next to her without being asked and took her hand as if anchoring her to the earth. My grandmother looked at me and said, "Call my lawyer." I called him. He saw us that same day. I drove with my hands tight on the steering wheel. I was still trying to piece everything together. At the law office, the lawyer did not sugarcoat anything. He took out a folder, opened it, and looked at me over his glasses. "This is what your family has been calling a gift," he said. He slid some papers toward me. "The house is not in your parents' names," he explained. "It is still in Mrs. Vivian's name. They were occupying it with her permission, but a change of ownership was never made." I felt the blow physically. "So they have been acting for years like it was already theirs." "They have been acting for years like a lot of things were theirs," my grandmother muttered. The lawyer continued unfazed. "Furthermore, in the current will, they were listed as the heirs to that property. That can also be changed as long as Mrs. Vivian is of sound mind, which she clearly is." My grandmother tapped her fingers on the arm of her chair. "Good, because I have no intention of rewarding anyone for leaving a child out in the cold." The lawyer asked her a few simple, direct, respectful questions. Just to make it clear that she fully understood what she was doing, and that no one was pressuring her. My grandmother answered as if she were offended that the world needed proof she could still think straight. Then they printed what needed to be printed. My grandmother signed. The witnesses signed. Initials were placed where they were needed. And just like that, in an ordinary office, the names my parents thought were carved in stone were no longer there. My name took the place they believed was theirs. Haley's future was protected along with mine, because my grandmother was not just angry. She was being precise. She also asked to change the beneficiaries of her accounts and savings. She had a little over $200,000 in accounts, investments, and money set aside for her care. A portion was reserved for anything she might need. The rest was arranged as she wished. A college fund for Haley. A safety net so that neither she nor I would ever have to live asking for permission. Haley stayed by her side the entire time in silence, holding her hand as if she still feared someone might take her away again. When they finished, my grandmother looked at the lawyer and said, "And now I want it in writing that I do not want my daughter or her husband near me." He nodded, as if he had been expecting that exact phrase. "We will also start the process to have them vacate the house." My grandmother turned her face to me. "I gave them space," she said. "And they used that space to make a little girl feel small." Haley's eyes filled with tears, but this time not with shame. With relief. My grandmother squeezed her fingers. "Next Christmas, you will never stand outside a door again." A year passed. The next Christmas Eve, Haley and I were in the house my parents had spent years calling their own. Not because I wanted a trophy, because my grandmother wanted the papers to tell the truth. The house was worth around $350,000, and when everything was settled, she came to live with us there. We truly adapted it for someone in a wheelchair. a ramp, grab bars, more convenient doorways, a bedroom on the ground floor. Useful spaces instead of cumbersome decorations. It is funny how that worked. The place that, according to them, did not have enough room for an 11-year-old girl, suddenly had plenty of space once it was no longer being used to punish someone. My parents got exactly what they deserved. Nothing. They called. They sent messages. They tried to apologize, to blame, to reorder the facts as if that could change history. I did not answer. Haley is different now. Calmer, but in a good way. Not in that sad way of shrinking so she will not be rejected. And my grandmother is still herself. Sharp. Stubborn. Very pleased with herself. That Christmas Eve the house smelled of punch, cinnamon and real food. Haley no longer looked at the door as if she feared someone would shut it on her. This time she came and went through her own house with her back straight. At one point, she approached my grandma Vivian with a small box in her hands. "Now," she said. My grandmother opened it slowly. Inside was another handmade ornament. Nicer. Sturdier. With a better finish than the last one because Haley was a year older now, her hands a little surer, and her heart less broken. It had my grandmother's name painted carefully on it. My grandmother held it as if it were both delicate and sacred. "This one I am putting up right now," she said. And Haley smiled. Not that careful little smile children give when they do not know if they will be loved. A full free smile. The way a child should smile when she finally understands that she was never the problem. I learned that when a family crosses the line into contempt and control, arguing is not always the most useful response. Sometimes it is better to stop, protect the most vulnerable person, and set the record straight with facts. I also understood that there are some very basic principles worth remembering in real life. The dignity of a child and an elderly person is non-negotiable. No one should be isolated from their phone, their freedom to decide, or their emotional bonds. And a house or an estate does not belong to whoever claims it the loudest, but to whoever actually holds that right in valid documents. Comment. This story really touched me, and I've been reflecting on how important it is to set healthy boundaries with the people we love. We all deserve to be treated with respect and basic kindness. Standing up for our dignity, as well as that of our children and elders, is never wrong. True healing begins when we stop accepting treatment that makes us feel small. I believe choosing peace often requires making difficult but necessary decisions. By taking responsibility for our own well-being, we can break painful family cycles. Your self-worth should always be protected. If this story speaks to you, I hope it encourages you to value your peace and your voice. I'd love to hear what lessons it brought up for you in your own life. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.